to come and do a presentation on abundancy, chick mortality, potential threats of secretary bird in the Serengeti National Park. That'd be an interesting one. Oh. Can I ask everyone to upload the presentation prior so that we... Prof, I hope you have done yours, eh? It's already past the...
Let's hope it's there.
Okay. Hey. Gata, is yours here uploaded? The latest one, the last version? Okay, make sure it is the latest of all, right? And then Kane? Brady? Have you presented, uploaded your? All is together. Okay. So in Jilima, yeah, make sure all is. Welcome. You have 15 minutes presentation and 5 minutes for questions.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for hosting us here. We are Federico Romani and Elena Ramella Levis, and together with our local collaborator of CAWM, and together with our collaborator Dr. Emmanuel Massi of Tawiri, since January 2023, we are conducting the first in-depth study and conservation project about the secretary bird in Tanzania. The secretary bird is a raptor species classified as endangered in the IUCN Red List, and it is listed between the species in the CITES Appendix 2. Besides the threats already recognized in other African countries, like for example land use transformation, roadkills, electrocution, or the excessive use of prescribed fires, sadly in the Serengeti ecosystem the problem of poaching is arising. But we will talk about this issue in the second part of our presentation. The current global population of secretary bird is decreasing, but to date, estimate of the number of mature individuals are still very scarce and are very imprecise, and are believed to range between 6,700 and 67,000 birds. Despite its conservation status, protection work or research for secretary bird in East Africa is still quite poor, even if the species require immediate concern. In other African countries, mainly in South Africa, road surveys, citizen science project and species ecology study have been undertaken more frequently. For this reason, we decided to start this research project in the Serengeti ecosystem, and the overall objective of the project is to fill the existing gaps of knowledge about demography and ecology of the secretary bird in northern Tanzania. Given specifically in the Serengeti ecosystem, given the large surface area and thanks to the availability of enough trophic resources and potential suitable environmental conditions, this ecosystem could represent one of the last strongholds in East Africa that can still support a large population of secretary bird. Specifically, we expect to understand the highest, to know the highest density area and the most important nesting site, to identify the environmental factor which determine its ecological niche and favor its survival, clearly identify the potential threats, and evaluate the dispersal pattern of juveniles between areas under different management regimes. Finally, we hope to increase awareness of local communities and stakeholders. Serengeti National Park has been selected as primary study area of this project because it records the highest number of secretary bird sightings in the country, data taken from GBIF database. And the pre-breeding census was performed before the start of the heavy rains, and during this task 52 transits and more than 5,000 kilometers were traveled, and occurrences of secretary bird are recorded inside and outside the transit. In addition, this data were also used to perform some detectability and habitat selection analysis. What's that? Okay. Nest search and monitoring was carried out from March to September, and the nests were searched especially in the central and southern Serengeti National Park by traveling all the available roads or off-road nearby the transit with more than 4 observations, which are the areas circled in red. During once identified, each nest was monitoring for the whole day and once a month. And during the monitoring, we collected data about brood size, chicks mortality at the different development stage, the parental care behavior, diurnal time patterns of diurnal activity, clearly potential threats, and in addition we took data about species, height and shape of the trees used by the secretary bird to nest building and roosting. Okay, the preliminary results of the pre-breeding census showed that the highest abundance were recorded in the southern and the central Serengeti National Park, with more than 1 individual every 10 kilometers, compared with the northern and western Serengeti National Park with 1 individual every 20 kilometers. Generally, the secretary birds are more often detected during the morning in close grassland bordered by open woodland or close shrublands, with in a habitat characterized by a low medium environmental heterogeneity. The density estimates will be available at the end of this year, because in the next past weeks we performed the post-breeding census. But we can speak about 1,000 and about 1,500 individuals in Serengeti National Park. Okay. Always during the pre-breeding census, we discovered that the secretary bird pairs were more easily detected late in the morning and early in the afternoon in habitats characterized by contiguous patches of grassland. Instead, the probability of spotting a single individual is higher in habitat with more shrub and environmental heterogeneity, but early in the morning or before sunset. Finally, in the southern Serengeti National Park, the probability of encountering pairs was higher than in the central and western sectors. The 3 species most used by the secretary birds to raise their nestling are Balanites egyptiaca and Vaccalia tortilis, whose height are between 4 and 6 meters or 6 and 8 meters. No nests were found in trees taller than 8 meters. In addition, no significant association were found between height and species. Finally, the canopy of these trees used by the species to raise their nestling, the canopy is typically flat on top and often has an enlarged cylindrical shape.
Yes, we found that in the Serengeti National Park the breeding season starts before the heavy rains and continues until June. As shown, mortality causes seem not to be natural in most cases. Among the 20 nests identified, the brood size was most often 1. From laying to hatching, the entire brood was lost in 5% of cases, while in 53% during the first month. No mortality was recorded after the first month until fledging in the remaining 9 nests. So even if mortality was extremely high, especially during the first 30 days of life, no chicks were killed by natural predators. However, since we were experiencing the loss of entire broods, especially in June and July, from August we moved the camera traps closer to the nest to have a clearer night vision and set to take a photo every 3 minutes. In fact, from previous data of the broods lost in the past month, the parental activity was normal until the evening before, while the day after it was altered, or even the parents were no longer present at the nest. So we had the first evidence of illegal collection of secondary bird chicks in August, since the camera trap structure was manipulated around 5:30 AM after only 12 hours of its placement. And we can see that the camera was turned, the power cables of the solar panel were cut with a knife and thrown on the ground. And when we checked, the nest was empty. In this case, this is a nest located in Makoma Hill, and we couldn't understand if the brood was lost due to poaching or excessive fire. In fact, we had no evidence of camera trap sabotage nor predations. But as you can see from the photos, the effects of the fires in this area were severe. And this pair, which laid before this wide area, was burnt and had a 10-days-old chick and an egg not hatched. When we checked, the chick was no more in the nest, while the egg was left there. However, since the study area records high secretary bird abundances, we believe that the observed chicks mortalities are too high to be neutral. And moreover, our colleagues of Nature Tanzania discovered that these birds to date are used in traditional medicine in northwestern Tanzania for sleeping sickness and to increase general activity of lazy people. You know, secretary birds are always walking, so probably it's something like this. So we strongly advise the park authorities to patrol the known nests, at least those that we discovered in the past year, during the night in the next breeding season. In addition, some areas in the central and southern Serengeti National Park should be designed as high priority conservation sites. In conclusion, we recognize 4 main potential threats for the secretary bird in northern Tanzania. Because of its terrestrial habit, secondary bird can be easily hit by cars, so education programs to increase awareness about endangered bird species could mitigate this threat. During the early barnings, some secretary bird pairs still have eggs or chicks. And since in Serengeti they nest on trees hardly taller than 7 meters, the flames can be a danger. Or even if the nests are not damaged by the flames, many of the prey of secretary birds, especially insects, are injured by excessive fire. And the parents are forced to go far to find food, or even they could choose to leave the brood due to a negative cost-benefit balance. So relevant authorities and researchers should work together to find the best timing for burning in the most sensitive areas, or avoid fire, or even to find the best moments to burn. And if some areas are critical for the breeding, the fires should be limited, of course. Then illegal trade and the killing of secondary birds are a serious threat whose magnitude to date has not yet properly evaluated in East Africa. So, also in this case, cooperation between researchers and authorities is needed to avoid future poaching episodes. But the role of the tourism is also very important to implement and favor future protection programs. Also because during our fieldwork missions we encounter many tourists, but also local guides who are very interested in these iconic bird species, also because Serengeti National Park is one of the last places in Africa where it is still very common to spot secretary bird. especially outside the protected areas where human-wildlife conflict is still high. Local tribes can poison dams with bad indirect effects. So raising awareness of local communities on the importance of larger birds of prey providing essential ecosystem services can mitigate this threat. In the future, we will try to gather more information about secondary bird harvesting, like for example the cost of illegal trade, the entity of the request, the origin and age of the individuals caught from the wild, and the main areas where it is used. And also we will try to we will tag juveniles with rings and satellite tracking devices to understand the dispersal pattern with, in areas with different management regimes, and the, identify the most suitable area habitats for their survival. Thank you for your attention. These are
Thank you.
our partners, Tawiri, and also Nature Tanzania, and Oikos, East Africa. And then we have also some tour operators who are helping a lot this small new project. And then of course TANAPA and TAWA and NCA, they are trying to yes, help us in our
Beautiful.
first challenges.
Thank you so much, Federico and Elena, for your beautiful presentation on a very interesting bird, secretary bird. Okay, I see reactions coming. Yes, doctor, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and the congratulations for a nice presentation. I would like to know, why did you choose to study secretary bird? Maybe because it is an endangered species, but you know there are so many birds which are under the category of endangered species in IUCN under this category. So I would like to know what triggered you to focus on secretary bird. Then, in addition to that, you said that they prefer to nest on tree heads, not more than 8 meters. So I'd like to know if there is anything, if there is a behavior kind of adaptation that associated it to the nesting on the tree head that does not exceed the height of 8 meters. Then the last question is, why do they choose Balanese Egyptiata, probably the Acacia tortoise? Is there any ecological reasons for this? And for the last question.
Oh, sorry, you'll ask the rest later because of time. Because of time, yeah. Allow me to say no to that and accommodate. Yeah, please, your response, please.
Yes, for the first, why secretary bird? Because first of all, there are a lack of information about these raptor species in East Africa. At the beginning, when we started the project, there are no information. We don't know we didn't know also the breeding period. We discovered in the first years of the project, spending also a lot of money in the field work, because clearly not information, because there are some information, but in South Africa, the environment is totally different, the management regime is totally different, all is different. So, like many other species, there are specifically adaptation to different environment. So for this reason, we choose secretary bird. Also because we are ornithologists. So clearly it's more easy for us, and we already work with the raptor species in Europe. So
Response to question 2?
the two was
Trees.
Trees. Yeah.
Anything to do with behavior, maybe?
Okay, why? Okay, because I didn't remember. Why? For me, there are two reasons. Is strategy for potential predator, because when these trees are not very high, they are a very compact shape. So it's very difficult for probably potential network predator that eat the eggs, like for example baboon. For a baboon it's very difficult to climb there, because you must go inside the thorn, because these trees are very compact and full of thorn. So for me it's a strategy. Also because the secretary bird, when stay flat on the nest, with this type of tree is very difficult to spot them, so they hide inside also very well. So for me it's a strategy. Why not another trees like, for example, Vaccaria robusta? But for me, for the long thorns and for the compact shape, especially of the juvenile trees, and not big trees, old trees, is a good strategy.
Yes, the shape, I think, is very important because also in this case is in the north. It is not a desert date or a umbrella acacia, but it's Cadaba species, and you can see that the shape
is the unique one, different trees.
Yeah, the only one.
Yeah. So similar shape, different trees. I will allow only one, and that will go to my senior brother Mohammed, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask, because you just stated that there is a high loss on chicks, and that is one of your hypotheses on the decline, that you said there's a high loss of chicks. But what are the causes of high loss? Is it more anthropogenic or biological losses on chicks? And the other question is, how is the hatching rate of most of those nests that you are looking at? And also, how you see...
Can I just... single question per person, right?
Yes.
Yes,
how
Mohammed.
do you see the growth of those chicks then to compare...
You will answer the first two or first one question, please.
Yes. We monitoring the rest from the beginning because we follow some pairs before the breeding season or at the beginning of the breeding season. So when they choose their trees for nest building, we discover the nest. Also because it's very difficult to discover secretary bird nest in Serengeti ecosystem. In other places, I don't know. During the first stage, when the pairs lay the eggs, not happen nothing. They continue with the behavioral parental care activity without variation. But the very strange things is after hatching to the first month that we lost a lot of chicks. But the strange things is that we never discovered biological part of the chicks. We discovered always the nest empty, totally empty. And another thing that we put camera traps with very quickly time lapse, one photo every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes. We try a lot of strategy to understand what's happening. But we discovered that the strange things happen during the night and also during the monitoring, because we spend almost one entire day in front of a nest. We never see other predator that attack them. So it's very difficult for us to understand the really causes of this high mortality.
Also because hatching rate, I think it was very high because we saw parents feeding, and then the day after, because we didn't move the camera traps so close to the nest from the beginning, we start putting them closer after all these disappearings. So when the camera traps was, for example, 100 meters from far, during the night we couldn't see. So we actually...
We have also the evidence for two for the moment, because we find the equipment destroyed, and strangely the chicks disappear.
Yes. Thank you for your beautiful... I was actually to offer an opportunity to Dr. Dule because he has not commended to it, and this is your favorite area. Yes, because I know this is,
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask you a very small question. The results shows that nesting is done mostly in the central Serengeti, than in southern and northern. Is there an explanation on that?
Yes. Okay, there are two possible reasons. The first reason, because was strange for us, because the first year we must understand the biological habits and ecological habits of the species. So we found that because the transit, we repeated also some transit with more observation, we repeated not only during the pre-reproductive period and after the reproductive period, but some transit, 10 transit out of 52, we repeat also during the breeding period. So we discovered that, for example, in some area of the Central Serengeti National Park, the abundance increase, and it's very strange. And in other area, a little bit decrease. So one reason, but this we will understand well when we will start to put the GPS transmitter clearly. This probably there are some local migration from other sectors of Serengeti National Park to the central. And why the central? This I don't know for the moment, because there are, for example, in the south there are a lot of suitable environmental conditions, because there are a lot of bears. Also, the highest abundance of secretary bird in Serengeti National Park is in the south. But why in the central there are so many nests, also very near?
Yeah.
So it's difficult. We will understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Very interesting. Okay. So we have one more presentation before you go for lunch. I'm told from the organizers. So I hope Fadil Njilima, this time you will not disappoint yourself. I understand the topic of birds is also of interest to Salehe. And except some mathematicians are not into that.
I would have expected someone to say, why is it called a secretary bird?
Okay, of course. Dule has the answer for that, but later on. Yeah? Yes.
Okay, thanks. I think I started the first slide.
Right.
Introduce myself and this one also. So it's just to show the paradigms of wildlife conservation has been from the state to maybe from convention to adaptive management. And those are the efforts just to enhance a good governance and conservation of the wildlife. We have the reason why we need partnership, because there's these alarming rates of degradation. As you know, 1/50 of one person in every 5 people depends on wild species, and those people they use like 50,000 wild plants in the animals, and 2.4 billion people depend on wood fuel for cooking. So we have such a range of alarming rates, and we have these global targets that we need to accomplish, and because of that there are several sectors and several peoples who would like to have partnership in order to enhance the governance or conservation of wildlife. As you can see, the targets for the 2030, like 30%, we would like to have 30% of wildlife or wild lands conserved. Actually, I will show the partnership in the mode of how IUCN is working. And the yellow highlighted, these are the countries that IUCN is working in Eastern and Southern Africa. So IUCN is the World Conservation Union. It works in a way of partnership. And we work through having the members. We have 100 members in these countries, but globally we have more than 1,400 members. We demonstrate unique leadership in Eastern and Southern Africa by providing credible and trusted knowledge, convening and building capacity of partners in action. We influence policies, we make standards for conservation, but also the practices. And here we value quality of African wildlife management for the celebrating 60 years. And we know that Mweka is also a member of IUCN. IUCN is working through several issues, and we work through building partnership across the boundaries. We bridge practice, knowledge, policy, and linkages, integrate holistic and learning-oriented perspectives, empowering and strengthening capacity, identifying and utilizing opportunities for scale-up. And we all do this through partnership. It's not the IUCN working only. And we have several thematic areas that IUCN is working. And those here, we have the standalone thematic areas, which are coastal and ocean resilience. We have integrated water resource management, and we have land systems management, which is agricultural land, forested land or wetlands, but also the drylands. And we have these cross-cutting thematic areas, which is conserving and sustainably managing biodiversity and ecosystems. And also we have climate change. This is also cross-cutting. And we're also working on gender and youth. How do we incorporate gender and youth in the partnership? So understanding that partnership is powerful, IUCN is working through commissions, and those commissions are not totally working for the IUCN as secretariat, but they are professionals from different areas, from different institutions, but also from different individuals who are being working with the IUCN through these commissions. We have the Commission on Ecosystem and Management. We have Species Survival Commission. We have Commission on Education and Communication. So as you can see and you can read here, I can't finish this slide, but we value the power of discipline from different people. Yes. And also, we build links between the countries, and thus we work with the state, we work with the government agencies, subnational, NGOs, and we also work with the local communities and the indigenous people. How do we partner, and how can you partner with the IUCN is through being a member, but also joining those commissions that I have shown, and also provide support to our general work or to specific projects. And through these projects, IUCN is working with the different partners in the different landscapes. So, because of partnership, and we know the contribution of the College of African Wildlife Management, we honor their contribution in producing the experts, but being an example in the partnership internationally. And from the website, I think I have got this data that they have produced like over 20% experts or alumni that are working in 51 countries. This is a very big role of this college. And the 2080 20 out of them is African countries. And also actively are being involved in the National Wildlife Management Policy in Tanzania, as we have seen from the presentation in the plenary. But also, the College of Mweka is a recipient of UNEP's Sasaka Prize. So this is one of the recognition that the college is very important in the partnership. So what exactly do we get from partnership? So partnership brings various stakeholders together, as I have explained. Those are ranging from the government, international NGOs, but also the local communities. And they bring different resources to the partnership of wildlife conservation. So these entities pulls out or pulls in the resources, expertise, but also networking, and also promotes awareness and education as the College of African Wildlife Management, but also the need for joint research. So we do research with the different institutions, and all information that IUCN issues like red listing or green listing of protected areas, we all depend from the partners. There are several researchers who are working and feeding the information to IUCN. So potentially understanding that importance, we have some new grants making that's decided for transfrontier conservation, and the IUCN is managed 30 grants, and one of this is working for WWF is working in Seluniasa, but also Tower. These are some of the recipients of those grants, and also potentially we also seek to enhance collaboration with this college on training the issues of the green listing, but also on issues of the marine and coastal biodiversity management of invasive alien species. We also, we would like to do research on biodiversity assessment and human-wildlife conflict management, and build capacity for effective local community management. So in partnership also there are some of hindrances that hinders the partnership. As we can see the list here, there's some conflict of interest among the partners. There's lack of communication also. We have limited funding to enhance the partnership. We have these examples of some multi-stakeholder platforms that have not going well because of the funding. Different priorities also. This is also hinders the partnership. Expectations. We also have new information that changes fundamental assumptions on which the partnership is based. Trapped and unproductive partnership relationship. So this is one partner influencing the other. And the larger partners are always seen as givers to other partners. There's this thinking instead of contribution to each partners. And perception of abandonment. When the lack of funds happens to the maybe larger partners, and the small partners, they feel like abandoned. So to enhance this, the partnership, it has to be a holistic partnership. And that's through increasing awareness and setting communication channels. We also continue researching, since conservation in wildlife is an adaptive. Always there are some changes. We also need co-creation of initiatives such as projects and implementation. And it has to be inclusive regarding of different partners within the sector or the landscape, but all kinds of people, like the local people and other actors in the landscape. In the partnership that respects social values, but also meet economic benefits. We should consider about the indigenous people and local people. And the benefits are both. It should consider the present and future. I'm talking about the sustainability and conservation. So thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Fadhili Njilima, for keeping up the time, because you've actually done within the time. It's trying to press you up so that you finish. An agent is urging us that the challenges that face the global planet are enormous, and we can only solve them if we come together. So, reactions? And yes, please.
Thank you, Fadhili, for the wonderful presentation. Personally, I think as a young scientist, I'm curious to know, the previous presenters talked about endangered species, specifically as secretary bird. Are there strategies by ICN to raise funds to do more research on other endangered species? Like what Dr. Laswai asked, why did they choose a secretary bird to do research on it? But these other many endangered species, do you guys as ICN have strategies to allocate more funds to study and know the status of other endangered species, even invite scientists to do research on them? Thank you.
Yes, please.
First of all, I just want to let you know that ICN is not a donor, first of all. But our strategy to raise fund is writing proposals for different challenges that impacted in different landscapes. And through that, I think I'll give you one example for the Tanzanian portfolio. We have different projects in different landscapes. We have projects which is called Sustain, which is funded by Swedish but also Norwegian, they are twins, that we work with the partners, which is AWF but also SNV. Currently, the big strategy that we are doing, we have just initiated collaboration with the different conservation authorities. We already set some collaboration framework with the Tanapa, Tawa, Mweka, we are in the process, and Tawiri, and so also TFS. And the target is to have a co-creation of the projects. They have highlighted the key challenges that we would like to deal with. Some of them we have already drafted some concept notes. So that's one of the way we strategize in solving these challenges. And in terms of the green listing, I think that's one of the targets that we would like to raise the awareness to protected areas and different stakeholders, as well as red listing of species.
Beautiful. I think you have taken care of that pretty well. Yes, please.
Hi, Sonia from Scotland's Park Rangers for the Northlands project. We also work with community-based conservation and community development. I really like that you noted the importance of working with local communities in partnership. Could you say a little bit more about how IUCN, as a large organisation, ensures when they are working with community-based or smaller local partnerships, how the power balance, the power dynamic between big and local and small, so ground up and from the bottom up and top down, how is IUCN managing that power dynamic to ensure that the smaller organisations retain their voice, retain their autonomy and their independence?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have different mechanisms that if we design a project in some places, first of all, we do stakeholder mapping, understanding which are the key actors on those landscapes. And we have different ways. For instance, we work with the AWF in the Kilombero landscape. They understand the Kilombero landscape very well, and they understand the key or the small community organization that are working there. And they do partnership with them by giving grants or by giving them like contracts to manage some initiatives. For instance, some of the communities are very well in restoration, like raising the nursery, they contract them to do that. They work with also some different authorities. So the key issue, we map the stakeholders in the area. We have such kind of examples of local communities. We have Ujamaa, UCRT in Arusha, and that's specifically working for indigenous people or local people for Tanzania perspective. And that's because they want to enhance the governance and access to land, but also that the linkage between the wildlife and also so land use, one of the keys, and also enhancing income generation for those people, but also how do they engage in issues on the gender and youth. So we have such kind of special projects that working closely with indigenous people and also local people in different countries. So we map it.
I hope that is fairly responded. Yeah?
Yeah, I understand it as a more strategic approach to that relationship to ensure
Correct.
that there is
Are we one very burning, if at all there is? That is you, my second.
Your assistant.
Your assistant.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Please.
First of all, I want to say, he was asking why the birds were called secretary birds. And I kept wondering, didn't he see the elegance in the birds, the heels, and the the impressive look of the birds. I answer on your behalf. So then on a more serious note, I think it's very important that when I hear all these NGOs here talking about conservation and this, that, this, I kept wondering, you know, is all this conservation basically meant for, you know, preserving the animals and the existence, or is it just to, you know, put grease on people and